Everyone. Great to see everyone here. Just watching all the little connecting to audio dots. Welcome back to everyone, to those who have attended a CSHA Convo previously, and welcome to those, it's your first one. We're so glad to have you. All right, we will go ahead and get started. Know some folks will trickle in. This one is a little different than the previous ones. So I'll go ahead and give the intro so you know all what we're doing here, and then kick us off. So thank you all so much for being here for this CSHA Convo. These CSHA Convos were created to highlight the lived experiences, challenges, and stories in our field so that we can learn, grow, and create effective change as a community. My name is Katie Gore, she, her, and I am a CSHA member, a speech-language pathologist, and an inclusion facilitator. I will be moderating today's conversation, and this is our 5th conversation. It was scheduled to be our closing conversation of 2020 and moved to 2021 because things have been happening. But our topic today is best practices as a foundation for CSHA's future. Each CSHA Convo features panelists who will share their personal stories, insights, and opinions formed by their experiences. Our goal is to affirm and elevate perspectives that historically have been minoritized in our field so that we can learn and move towards actionable change. This is to be a safe space for our panelists to speak frankly. We request that all speakers and audience members abide by the CSHA Member Code of Conduct and demonstrate the CSHA values of courtesy, dignity, and an open mind speaking, commenting, or simply listening. If you are passionate about continuing this impact in our field, we heartily encourage you to join CSHA if you aren't already a member, to get more involved and to keep these conversations going, which we will be doing and telling you more about that later. Some tech housekeeping for us. Please keep yourself muted. If you become unmuted and you are not the speaker, a moderator will mute you just to prevent any background noise from interfering with the person who is speaking. If you are a CSHA board member and or a committee member, if you could edit your display name, and you can do that by clicking on the top right-hand corner of your box, there's little dots and you can click a drop down and rename yourself to include CSHA, and that just gives us a sense for which leaders and community members are listening and part of this conversation. Please feel free to use the chat feature to comment and ask questions as the panel progresses. So the schedule that we will do tonight is the panelists will initially take turns answering a few prepared questions, and after that we will move to a more conversational flow. So you're welcome to comment throughout, but please save questions until we move to the open forum portion. We will be soliciting ongoing comments and feedback after this session is over, and we'll provide that information at the end of the event if you want to leave feedback. If you don't want to read the chat and just focus on the speakers, you can just leave the chat closed and we will read any discussion questions aloud. This is a change from the previous convos. This session is being recorded because of the topic and because of our speakers. Really want to promote transparency and openness, given that we have leadership voices here. So this will be recorded. Just FYI. You're welcome to have your video on or off. We encourage video on if feasible for you so we can put real names to faces, but know that that may not be feasible for you, so that is okay. All right, I will introduce our panel now. So panelists, when I introduce you, I will say your name and then I'll pause, and if you could say hello, and that will allow your box to appear and highlight so people can find you in the sea of faces. All right, and these are in the order of people who sent me their bios. So Raquel Narain is an independent contractor with Jewett & Associates. She lives in Union City, California. She has been a CSHA member since 2010, a CSHA board, is the current CSHA board chair, is the current CSHA board governance committee chair, the current board nominations committee chair, and she is the past advisory committee member for District 3, past director for District 3, and past board diversity and inclusion committee chair. Linda Pippert.
Hi, everyone.
Is Vice President of Clinical Operations at the Stepping Stones Group, and she lives in Orange County. She has been involved with CSHA for a very long time, so let me see if I can read all these. For 34 years, is that correct, Linda?
Oh, yes.
Amazing. Okay, so some of these highlights here, we have the Commissioner on Association Services, the Treasurer, Social Chair for the 2002 Annual Convention, registration co-chair for the Kasha Annual Convention, the president-elect from 2017 to 2019, the board chair from 2019 to 2020, and the immediate past board chair 2020 to 2021. Michele Linares.
Hi, everybody.
Is the Kasha chair-elect and is president of the Learning Grove, Speech Language Pathology Incorporated, established in 2007. She lives in Reseda, California. She is the Kasha chair-elect, Kasha treasurer, Kasha District 7 Advisory Board Chair, the Kasha Nomination Committee Chair for District 7, and a member since 2012. And Burl Fogel.
Hello.
Is the previous Kasha board chair. She lives in Southern California in Hermosa Beach. She is a semi-retired SLP, and as with her very first graduate clinic, she has one client. And Burl, I apologize. I think there's maybe other titles that you've had in Kasha, and I don't have them on my list. Are there any highlights you want to call out?
Yes, so I've had many titles since 1999, I believe. I've helped with multiple conventions in various ways. I've been ops chair, ops co-chair, social co-chair. I've been on the District 6 nominating committee. I've been District 6 director-elect and director. I've been the Kasha Star, state advocate for reimbursement. I've been the commissioner on professional services. I've been president-elect, president, chair, and immediate past chair. And I've been foundation president and foundation chair. And I think that's it.
Amazing. Thank you. I apologize for not having those written down. So for all the folks in the room today, as you can see, we have some amazing Kasha leaders here, and that is really what we're here to talk about today, is hear from these folks who have participated and been part of these convos all along. You know, what have these convos meant for Kasha, for these folks who have so much perspective on Kasha on the field, and where are we going in the future? So to kick this one off, we are also going to do something different this time and start with a video, the Kasha video. So I have that pulled up, and I believe I can share my screen here. This is about 1.5 minutes. So it's a nice brief little thing. And here we go.
All people should be empowered with the fundamental human right to engage and connect. For more than 50 years, Kasha has worked to fulfill that vision. We serve Californians across our diverse state, supporting those with speech, hearing, swallowing, voice, and cognitive challenges. We're a professional, caring community of speech-language pathologists, speech-language pathology assistants, audiologists, audiologist assistants, and students who serve in schools, medical settings, private practice, colleges, and universities. We're the consumers of these critical services, and we're the families and friends of those served. We're driven to make a difference in the lives of others. For our neighbors whose lives are lifted when we partner with them, and for those who love them. As California's leaders in communication, cognition, hearing, and swallowing, our mission is to serve our profession, members, clients, and community through evidence-based leadership in professional practice, strategic advocacy, thought leadership, and interprofessional collaboration, all with a focus on changing lives and telling the stories of those we serve, because their amazing inspirational stories are why we do what we do. Kasha, human lives, human connection.
All right, so with that, I am going to ask the first question of the panel and panelists. I'll let any of you go first, and you can take it where you will. So our first question is, as someone with a leadership role in Kasha, what has been the impact of these Kasha Convos for you? What do you make of the responses that you've received, positive and or negative?
This is Michele. I can
Go ahead.
start. I wanted to just highlight that some of the positive things from the convos is I felt like we've talked about imposter syndrome or feeling as though our leadership abilities might not be up to par or less than. I think it affirmed to me that my intentions for the association are good, and that I have the skill set to be able to do this, and that I knew, and that I think the positive thing for me was that it gave me the ability to take a step forward into the light and say, I'm ready. I want to lead. And it's okay if I feel uncomfortable, because I think we've all been there, because we have an important charge before us. And I think the convos help bring that to light because of the rawness, the emotion, and that human connection, to know that we've all felt that way, and that it's okay, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable. But with that, that I felt internally ready, and externally, even if I felt a little nervous or anxious about what leadership meant, that I could do it. And I knew that that had a lot of the same feelings about that. And so I think that's what the combos really help bring to light for me in terms of leadership.
Katie? I'd like to say that I've loved seeing so many new faces and hearing so many new and older, not older age, but older in membership, open voices, people who are able to participate when I think many of them did not feel they could before. I think, to me, that's the most important thing out of all of this. There has been such comfort, and as Michele said, the raw emotion and the ability to express yourself honestly has been just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And thank you for doing this.
If
And
I
I think
could add-
just, oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead, Raquel.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to what Pearl said, and I agree with everything she said. And I think one of the other things that I appreciate about CSHA Convos is I think it just made us more visible, not only just our membership and even non-members or potential members, but even us as CSHA leaders or part of the leadership. I think a lot of times people just feel like there's this disconnect between what CSHA is and does and the rest of our community. And I think that the Convos has really helped open that up to where we can put faces and names together and people know who we are, and that we have the same challenges as everyone else, but we also, can work together to come up with solutions. And I think that's for me has been like the biggest impact of Convos, is that it just really has made us more visible at a time where we really needed to be more visible.
Yeah, I think the CSHA Convos have just been incredible. I love to see that using new technologies to be able to connect with each other across the whole state at one time, opening the venue. It's been so encouraging to see the way that Raquel and the other committees that have worked on this, putting this together to make sure that we do have connections with each other and we have those difficult conversations. Leadership is always challenging. Every CSHA president I've ever known, and Burl can attest to this too, I'm sure, we've known a lot of them. There have always been challenges, and we just have different challenges this go round. But the way that the membership has responded to these convos and the honesty of the panelists, my heartfelt thanks to all those panelists who really brought to the forefront issues that were heavy on their hearts sometimes. And I just can't express enough my gratitude for these conversations.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, just the theme of gratitude and learning and where this goes into the future is so strong here. So that brings to the next question, which is, what does inclusion mean to CSHA? That topic has been explored so much in these conversations, both being included, not being included. So from what you learned from the convos and with where CSHA is and what CSHA has learned from the convos, what does that mean?
This is Michele, and I just want to say that sometimes we, in the environment in which we found ourselves, that inclusion, we felt like we had a lot of conversations at first around race, but we also saw that inclusion meant, diversity in terms of, male and female, age, disability. Some of us, have our own struggles that we work with personally, to still provide a service to the community at large. So I really appreciated having my perspective continuously be open to kind of weigh out what are the needs of our community, not just as providers, but also of those that we provide our service to.
Katie? I see inclusion meaning that Kasha is listening, that Kasha is spreading its arms and including anyone who has an interest, anyone who even has a slight interest, whether they're professionals or other stakeholders, listening to their needs, doing some hard listening about what has Kasha offered, what should Kasha offer, and moving forward as able and as is appropriate to make changes that have been suggested by others. And I think that inclusion has been difficult, true inclusion, and it's not like Kasha is there. It's a process that will be ongoing. It should never stop. It should always be changing. And I always think that listening is number one and is key.
I'm sorry, Raquel, can I just add one more thing
Sure.
to what Beryl said, is that our inclusion should be ingrained and integrated in every part of
Yes.
Kasha,
Mhm.
not just as a committee or a separate offshoot, that everything we do should include those principles. And I think that was also very telling and cathartic for me as well.
Yeah, and I agree with all, what's been said by both Michele and Beryl, that, inclusion for me is really being able to embed, that into our DNA of the organization, that it's not just this other box that check off, like, all right, we're being inclusive and now we're done and we're going to move forward. That, this is really something that we need to look at every aspect of our association with this lens of, who's benefiting from the work that we're doing, who's being left out, whose voices are we hearing, and who's being elevated. And so I think it's, but not only just with our membership, I think also within our profession. A lot of times Kasha gets this criticism that we're too focused on our professionals that work in the schools. We don't do enough for our medical-based professionals or for professionals that have private practices. And so, it's taking like this micro lens and also a macro lens, of what we're doing, just not only being inclusive with our practices and policies, like having term limits, being more inclusive with our recruitment and the way that we recruit individuals by opening up our circle, but also, are we given an equal voice to the different areas that we work in, so schools, medical setting, private practice, and also the different avenues that we're giving individuals to have their voices heard. And I think CSHA Convos is part of that, creating different opportunities and also identifying some of the individuals that have high potential but low engagement, and how do we pull those individuals in, because those are the voices that we also need to hear. Because I think certain individuals that are in our leadership roles have this platform already, but how do we lift up the individuals that don't already have this platform, and so they get to have their voices heard in whichever capacity they're comfortable in doing so.
I think too, when we look back over historically the organization, very early on, we were talking about diversity 20 plus years ago. It just looked different. So there was a committee, there was a concern for including people from different work settings, but we always have to be looking about, what are we omitting? What do we need to grow in? What are those areas that are going to expand for future members of CSHA, for future professionals just coming into the profession now? As leadership, are we laying a good, sound foundation and leaving the organization with structures in place that allow for new leaders coming in to take and do the next level of things. I mean, there's nothing worse than an organization, a company, an anything, even a personal life, to stay in the status quo. And I think we've wrestled with many things the last few years, and I think it's just accelerated. And I will tell you, the two women coming to me in leadership, Raquel and Michele, are absolutely amazing, amazing leaders. When I finish my term at the end of June, I'm going to cheer them on as big as I've cheered them on when they've been there, because they had demonstrated leadership. They were willing to step up. They're willing to have the tough conversations and challenge all of us, but in a good way, and really want to move the organization forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
you,
We stand
Linda.
on your shoulders, and I see other presidents on here. And you definitely laid a pathway, and we honor you. And I know that Raquel and I have had a lot of conversations about leadership. And so they're, again, going back to that point of gratitude, while there's always things to fix and do, I think in a very organic way, everyone who sat in the chair of leadership has put forth the best intentions for the association. And it's our turn now to grow all of those seeds that all of you planted so long ago.
And I think just to also add to that, just to be able to keep it real and raw. I mean, although we've been getting a lot of positive feedback from the changes that have been happening in the association, it hasn't been across the board. I mean, we have been getting just as much, maybe not as much, but we have been getting some pushback and some negative feedback as well. And one of the unfortunate pieces of trying to become more inclusive is that there is a group of individuals within our field and CSHA members that feel like that we're silencing them, that, this push for equality somehow equates to us becoming, and in their words, of becoming like anti-white. And that's something that we've been dealing with a lot, where, there's this feel that CSHA and its drive to be more diverse and more inclusive, that we're now turning our white colleagues away, and that there isn't a space for them anymore in the association. And I mean, and that's just not true. I think our need to highlight individuals who have been marginalized and who have not been given the same opportunities we have does in no way take anything away from other professionals or individuals in our field. And again, just to kind of stress, when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about race. We're talking about people with different experiences from different regions of the state, different ages and stages in the profession. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges, that we need to be comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations. And I think we're in such an infant stage of that. It just needs to happen. And I hope that if you, or if anyone within your peer group, feel that we are starting to be more exclusive in our drive to be more inclusive with our markets, that it's just not true. I think we need to take time out to highlight individuals who haven't had that opportunity, and to hear their voices, because until we hear their voices, we can't move forward.
Exactly. And we were trying to expand the tent, not create these divisions again, and I think that those are the things that need to be said. And I'll be very frank, for those that feel this anti-race sentiment coming from us, I would love to be able to talk to you and to affirm to you what our beliefs are and what we want moving forward. But if it is something that is making you feel pushed out, then I also challenge you to look inside yourself and ask yourself why. Because I think that we've all been asking ourselves these questions. We have all, especially during COVID, when we've had to, close in our circles to stay with our families, and our access to the world has come to us filtered through different lenses. And we've all experienced tragedy on a national level, from George Floyd to other things, that we should all be questioning and asking ourselves, what's right, what's wrong, and what side of this do you stand on? And if for some reason you're feeling fragile or that you're being attacked, then I invite you to do some hard introspection. And if that's difficult, then let's do it together. Let's talk about it, because never do we want to make people feel excluded. That's not the point of any of this moving forward. And I can affirm that, being the leadership that's coming in, that we hope to create spaces where there is a space for everyone. You know, we want your participation. We want your leadership. We want everyone to remember what our true charge is that we care for people, profession. And when it comes to communication disorders, swallowing disorders, and hearing disorders in the state of California, we are the thought leaders. We are the people that are charged with that. And we have to remember that that is who we are as a whole. And within that whole, there's going to be the diversity, those questions, but also the people that access our services. Look at their faces and who they need us to be for them. So I thank you, Raquel, for bringing that up, because those are the conversations that have been coming up, and they're difficult, but they're important to be had.
If I could continue along those lines, in my naivety, I assume that if we open the doors, anybody who wants to come can come in. But I know Burl and I had a conversation several years ago following a board meeting where we had some visitors from a university, very diverse group of students. And afterwards, the professor thanked us profusely for meeting with the students, with welcoming them so warmly, and just showing hospitality, if you will, to them. And then she came with but. The students told me they didn't see anyone like them at the table. I think it stuck both of us in the heart. And it really has made me think ever since that day and reanalyze opening the door and saying, welcome everybody. It's not enough. I need to be reaching out to people and specifically inviting them to committees, to run for offices, to serve, and let them know we appreciate them. We need them. We need every linguistic group, every culture group, every race represented in CSHA, because that's who we serve. And it's such a disservice not to be making sure everyone not only just sees the doors open, but they see us pulling them in through the door saying, no, please come join us. We want to do this together.
And I'm in agreement with what all three of you said. And Linda, yes, I remember that. And I'd also like to go back to our brand strategy workshop that Brian and the CSHA staff organized. And what I can say is, boy, were our eyes opened. And as hard as those of us who have been around a long time, as hard as we've worked to do certain things and to try to bring people into the fold, we were literally slapped around. Yeah. And we needed to sit there and think, wow, what is this person saying? And what can I do to make the necessary changes? And how have I contributed to negative feelings? And how have I contributed to positive feelings? And what needs to be done for the organization and for the profession and for the community at large? It was tough. And anyone, Raquel, the people that you're saying are feeling left out, they may have some of the same emotions that some of us had. And the whole thing with pearls and pumps that Brian often says, and that we got from the brand strategy, it was funny because the next day in my outfit, I had some pearls that I was going to wear. And it struck us that they're right, but you have to listen. And no matter who you are and how old you are and where you've been or where you're going, you've got to listen. And if you don't, then you personally become stagnant. Somebody said that. We don't want to become stagnant personally, let alone professionally, or stagnant as a member of our community. And I think those were some really hard lessons that we learned. And I hope we learned them, and we're continuing to learn them.
You know, Beryl, I just wanted to add that it's interesting because as you navigate the world, depending on what your experience is, and mine is a Latinx female, you know, sometimes you think that you've got the pulse on certain issues, being a person of color, like, okay, been there, I have a narrative in my head, I have a go-to of what I need to do and how I need to behave. But it was interesting because you never stop learning and there's change happening all around you. I'm now today a mother of a child with autism. Both my children have ADHD. And I was out of one of the convos directed to a group, and it was talking about ableist perceptions and ideas. And it was interesting because there's always something to learn. For me, in this moment in my life, that was something that spoke to me. And I had to revisit some of the things that I'd learned as a therapist, you know, even person first language, or what are the goals that I truly want for my son? How do I feel about certain types of therapies? So the point to that, to my most personal experience recently, again, you're always learning. You're not this individual that comes with all of it together. And so there is some cultural humility to be able to understand what your role is and what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do anymore. And if you didn't know better before, once you do know better, then be better, right? Like you have to move forward in that mindset to say, I'm gonna change, and change is hard, right? But necessary. Again, thank you.
Absolutely. And I think just to kind of add to that, Michele, and I think just with some individuals I spoke to, myself as well, it can seem very overwhelming, you know, and I think the best thing to tell people is just start where you are, you know, and try that one thing. And, you know, you don't have to have this complete transformation overnight. And it's a journey and it is a learning experience. And I think a lot of times it does stir up these emotions and thoughts about even ourselves that we might not be comfortable with because we may not have viewed ourselves in that way. And just be able to kind of take that journey and be comfortable with. Again, I think the thing for me is just learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And, you know, once I get too comfortable, that to me should be a red flag that, you know, I'm probably not doing something right here. I need to take a deeper dive in something. And so I think that's another big piece of it. And also being able to take criticism. You know, if someone tells me that maybe my thought on a certain issue may not necessarily be like the most appropriate or may not be relevant to our current times, and be able to take that feedback and not take it as a personal attack or a personal insult, but just as an opportunity as food for thought and just another area that I need to look further into in a way to grow, so I can better serve not only myself and our profession, but also our consumers that we work with.
I think another thing that's been really impactful for me, following along what Beryl said, to listen in some ways that I maybe hadn't in the past. But I've so appreciated some of my African-American friends that have opened up and honestly told me about racist comments and situations that they have been in. These are men and women in our field, high education, so respected for what they've done. And to hear their stories about what people have called them, or a client refusing to work with them, or a student even demeaning them just for their race. I haven't had to face anyone being derogative about my cultural background, if you will, since I probably was in grade school, and we're used to taunting of little kids to each other. But some of our colleagues don't, and these comments and situations are going to pop up. They can pop up at any time.
I want to thank you for that, Linda. This has been the sharing from all of you is just so raw and open right now, and it's so encouraging to hear this from the leadership. So at the risk of taking what has become this very personal thread, I do want to ask you all to share about the objectives of CSHA and tie it to what you have just shared here, though. I mean, this is so personal and from the heart and raw, and you all bring who you are as people into your leadership roles for the organization. So I know there's a lot of folks in the room who are familiar with CSHA, who have been involved with CSHA, but we also have a lot of folks who might be brand new, who don't really know what CSHA does, and how do these values that you're talking about play out in the real work that creates that real change that you're acknowledging is so important. So then, what role would you say that CSHA does serve that speaks to these issues that are so important, that from activities, goals, objectives of the organization, and how that impacts the professionals?
Katie, currently I'm the advocacy chair, and there's a few really important things that I've learned is in CSHA, because it is the California Speech and Hearing Association, we are who influences our legislature. They don't look at ASHA or to ASHA because their concern is for those speech and language professionals in California. And so we have a lot of influence. So I always say there are 30,000 of us and there's about 3,000 in our membership. Imagine the power if we were all forward facing, if every single professional in California was part of CSHA, what we could use and do with that with our lobbyists. And that goes back to what one of our goals is fiscal sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion. If all of our voices can be heard, imagine what we could do. And Raquel often says, and if you're working today, it's because you've benefited from something that CSHA has done. And I'll let her go into what those things are. But I will say that, that's a very significant number, especially when you think about ASHA, and I'm a member of ASHA, but they are concerned with the national needs of our field, and they are a $64 million operation, while we are a $1.4 million operation with the 3,000 of us. So we need you. If we're going to keep this forward trajectory, we need you in your membership. We need you in your voices. We need you in your leadership. If you think you're too busy right now because your world is consumed with work and family life, and you're finding that balance, your membership alone can help us move forward those things that we need in all of and in every workplace that we participate in.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of add to what Michelle's saying, like advocacy is definitely our biggest piece. And I think that's the biggest way that CSHA can really help amplify our voices as a collective profession. And Michelle's right. And like, I do always say that if you are currently working today, or if you're in a program, you have benefited from the work that CSHA has done on the advocacy front. Whether it's like if you're an owner of your own private practice or NPA, a couple things like 4 years ago, we had CSHA's lobbyists, or in our work, had helped shoot down a bill that was going to require organizations to have audits, which would have put so many businesses out of business actually. And so, and then also from like reimbursement rates, whether you're in the schools or in the hospitals, especially now with COVID hitting, if you are an SLPA or if you are an RPE candidate and you're working and you're being supervised, it's because of the CSHA has done to help work with the governor's office to help with these waivers, get these waivers in place where they can have supervision provided remotely. So if so there's no aspect of our lives that CSHA has not impacted. And the unfortunate part of that is for far too long, we've had a small fraction of professionals in the state that have been carrying the weight of the profession. And, to Michelle's point, if we can only imagine if we had all 30,000 plus licensed SLPs and audiologists in the state as members of CSHA, our voice would be so amplified and we would have such a big impact in the state, and it would change the way our profession, one, is viewed in the face of the state and other individuals who don't really know who we are unless they actually meet us. And also just how we can improve just the work quality and the conditions, not only for ourselves, but then also the services that are provided to our clients and other stakeholders. Our voice, we are poised to have our voice amplified in a way that I don't think any other state can, just because of the sheer size of our state. It's just now, how do we get everyone to get the buy-in and to come on board and to be a part of that movement?
I think if I could just add to that, and I certainly have felt that push and how important advocacy is. I've certainly felt it my whole career, and now more than ever, as we had the opportunity to work with the licensing board with Paul Sanchez, the executive officer, and his staff. They were so welcoming and so appreciative. Our lobbyist, Laura Preston, got an appointment for Raquel and I to speak with Department of Ed. She got us in that same appointment a representative of the governor's office, and that change that allowed for the waiver and to allow for telesupervision during this emergency happened like a week after that meeting. Again, just recently, Raquel and I, again, Laura Preston made it happen, unprecedented access. We had a meeting with the director of DCA, the deputy director, and their legal counsel. Usually we only get to meet with the licensing board, but we got to step up, and it's opening doors, and they wanted to hear our concerns. How can we support the licensing board so that they can do their job more efficiently? What do you guys need from them? So that's just one small area. Historically too, there's been a lot of work done in early intervention going back, is it what, decade and almost 2 decades. Elaine Fogel-Schneider has been the true champion to get SLPAs the ability to work in early intervention in an effective manner across the entire state. Also, we've talked a lot about the last couple of years in leadership of CSHA about being thought leaders, and I think the term has come up a couple times this night. But as thought leaders, you have to always be thinking about change. And you probably have heard that. There's no static in CSHA. There wasn't 20 years ago, there wasn't 10 years ago, there wasn't 5 years ago, and there certainly isn't now. There's no need, we just don't have room to be static and status quo, as I mentioned earlier. We have to be collaborators. We've got to push some of the limits. We've got to stand up. We've got to be the innovators. And no one of us is going to ever have all the ideas. Not just the officers in CSHA are going to have all the ideas, not just the board members, not just the committee members. There's ideas flowing in all the time. And then it's the job of the board and the officers to funnel through that and say, what is going to work? What is strategically what we need to work on right now, given our resources, given the timeliness, and given even the limited amount of staff we have right now. With the crunch in finances, our staff went from 5.5 positions down to 3, plus some consultants. They are doing a heavy job, just like 3,000 members carrying the load for 30,000 SLPs, SLPAs, and audiologists. So if you want to give a shout out and a big hand to the staff at the CSHA office, please feel free, because they have a lot on their plates.
And I'd like to piggyback on all this. If we had more members, then we would have more money. And if we had more money, we could have more staff. And if we had more staff, we could do more things. Yes. And we would make a broader range of professionals happier, because we could do something over here for this group, and we could do something over here for this group. But now CSHA is trying to listen to everyone, but can't do everything. We could do more. Listen to me, I'm still we. CSHA could do more with more members, more money, and more staff. And all of you on this call as members, you could reach out to people and help your organization. And by bringing in more members, you could be the conduit to the community and help increase the membership, the money, and the ability to do more things.
Something that comes up is this ruthless prioritization. When you're running lean, we have some amazing minds in our board, that sit on at our board table, and ideas. We want to do studies. There's so many things that we want to do. But if we are going to move the organization forward at a time when we are lean, then we have to focus on fiscal sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion if we are going to continue to grow the association. And so that we have the resources to honor all our past people that have put forth all these efforts, but also to be able to sustain ourselves. A lot of the things that we're doing today are really what's going to impact us in the next few years. And good leadership has that forward-facing mentality. And so I really encourage professors and those at the university that they embed membership for their graduate students, or for your NISLA students, that when you're coming out of the profession, that's what you give graduates. The lays are wonderful. How about their membership to Kasha for a year? There are so many ways that we can find a way to work together so that we could amplify and do so much more. But it's really going to be the bedrock of that is, membership and fundraising for now. And hopefully 2-3 years from now, we don't have to have this conversation. It could be, what are we going to do for trans voices? What are we going to do for our LGBT community? What are we going to do, for underserved children in areas that aren't getting services? What are we going to do for caseload workload? We can pay our lobbyists. We can actually make a dent and change things. We will, in 10 years, have more baby boomers than 5-year-olds, and they're going to need us. So we're already spread thin. What do we work on in terms of the pipelines into our university programs? How do we get more professors? How do we get people to acknowledge who we are, not after they've had a stroke or that they've had to work with us because their child had some need? That visibility comes from being able to work together with the finances that this business needs in order to grow.
Awesome. And I think just to kind of add to that, I know we're getting ready to open up to questions, but one of the things that we have been working on, so we have heard and taken to heart all the feedback that we've been getting about just that member of value, right? So we know advocacy is a huge part, and it impacts every aspect of our lives and our professional lives. But some of the things that we have been doing is that we know that there is a need for resources specifically around diversity, inclusion, equity. And so we've engaged some of our committees. So we've engaged our Content Advisory Committee, our Diversity, Inclusion, and Culture Committee, as well as our Professional Practices Committee. And they've come together and they've created a huge library of resources to help guide these questions in your own professional life and around diversity and inclusion. And so that's something that actually just launched earlier this week. It was put into our website, and there are some portions of it that are free to non-members, but the bulk of the work is behind the membership login. So that's something that we've been able to do in the last, I don't know, Brian can probably speak to this a little bit more. I think, I think it was less than like 3 months. We just had, actually one of our board members that came to us, asked for a meeting with Brian and myself, and it's like, these questions are coming up in our, in our advisory committee at the district level. Is there some information that you have that we can share with them? And for us, that was that light bulb. Like, of course, we can't sit here and talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and not have any resources to really help guide that discussion and to help move that work forward. So we contacted our committees, and they got together and were able to put this amazing work together of resources that we now have available to our members and non-members.
Yeah, Raquel, if I can just piggyback on that. We knew when I got to Kasha 2.5 years ago that there was a lot on the plate. Communications and resources is one. We were able to launch the new website in December of 19 with plans for a phase 2, but with the cancellation of the convention and a $300,000 hole in the budget this year, we knew we had to suspend phase 2. Nonetheless, because of the work of those 3 committee chairs and their committees, we were able to get that content. And as Raquel said, we just launched it this week. So we're going to continue to work with our committees and continue to develop new areas of content. Again, a certain level for the public and a deeper dive, as it's called, for members. So we have again, it goes back to the previous question, there's so much we have built the infrastructure now to be able to do these additional levels of work. Now we're just crunched in terms of resource to be able to produce and get it out there, but we're still doing it. And in fact, Raquel, I know you're probably on the edge of announcing one of the things that got suspended in phase 2 of the website was the launch of our virtual communities. But with Raquel's support and some renegotiation around some of our resources in our tight little budget, we're after the convention going to be launching our virtual communities. And so we're going to be able to give our members an opportunity to subscribe to any number of virtual communities, network, communicate, share within those communities. Another piece is going to be a very productive and functional advocacy committee. So when we do a call to action, you'll be able to go in and click through and send a message to your legislator. And then after that, the next project will be an online supported mentorship program in a very user-friendly, collegial sort of a context that Raquel can describe better than I, but it'll be supported through technology. And all these things are made possible because we put a new backbone in the new website that we launched a year ago, December, and all these add-ons, while delayed, they're still on the list. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, so I guess kind of just to add to that, like, long story short, I know right now some of the criticism we get, it just feels like we're not doing anything. So I just want to assure all of you that we are working there. We have some really robust conversations that are happening constantly. I know Brian and I like talk daily, like multiple times throughout the day, as we have little ideas in between sessions and in between he's doing stuff, we're always just shooting each other text messages or on calls. But we have some really great stuff that are rolling out. And most importantly, we also have our virtual convention that's going to be happening next month. And, in a very short amount of time, being able to put this robust convention together where we're going to have over 100 different presentations, and still have, a virtual exhibit hall and town halls for the SLPAs and for students. There's just so much work that has been happening in such a short relative amount of time with the limited resources that we have. And again, just to kind of add back to that, like if we had more resources, I can only imagine what we'd be able to accomplish and provide for our members and our professions. So
I'd also like to speak to the leadership of Brian and his team. If you haven't felt the disruption in everything that we've been through as an association, it's to their credit. Because with a very small team, the asks have been thoughtful, not scrambled. The conversations are being had before opening up to the membership at large and then telling you what exactly is it that we need you to do. And I think that that's helped us offset a lot of scrambling and confusion so that the messaging is direct and clear and we can get things done in an efficient way. And that's them being good stewards of our money, being good stewards of your time, because it is a volunteer organization and volunteerism comes in different levels, right? For some people it might be serving on a board, for some it might be attending a meeting with their advisory board, for others it might be bringing in a new person or just coming and being curious and saying, okay, I'm going to give this a shot and become a member. All of those things have been made easier because of Brian and his team. And so, at a time when things have been tumultuous and scary and crazy, I who run I'm no saint. I run a practice. I have 30 employees. I have 2 small children, 8 and 14. I'm married. There's a lot going on, but I would dare take up this charge right now because I couldn't walk away if everyone is doing their part. But I know that I have Brian and his team that are working so diligently to make things better for all of us. And I think that speaks to really strong leadership today. You have someone who's really passionate about our field, even though they're not directly in our field. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged if you're considering joining us today.
So with that, I would love to open up the floor here. So questions or comments from the audience. And this conversation has been very broad today. We've talked about personal experiences and values, and then talked about very, strategic and concrete activities that the organization does. But we're really trying to bring these two things together as a community today of, how do these values and passions and struggles that individual people have lived and communities have lived tie together with the potential that's possible with a professional organization and leadership. So again, would love to open it up to anyone. I have a couple backup questions here of things that I've been writing down that would love to ask, but comments, questions, you can raise your hand or just type them in the chat.
While you're thinking, I did put in the chat a link to a story we did in the magazine last fall called Kasha Trajectory. It tries to sort of summarize the work that the organization's gone through the last few years to try to innovate and create change. It's a great piece that sort of catches you up if you one place, and to share it with others. And then I also just want to say that in our upcoming issue of Convey magazine that will be out in the mail in a couple of weeks, Raquel has a very thoughtful column. So thoughtful that Michele, who used to be on staff at Kasha, but is now working with us as a consultant on our social strategy. Michelle's going to be pushing it out to members and non-members. It's a very human, frank, honest, earnest, genuine reflection on what's been going on in the organization. And we're going to push it out so that people inside and outside the organization can see it. And I commend it to you and thank Raquel for her servant leadership and being so willing to go out there and say what she says in the column. So look for that coming out. We'll be pushing that out in the next few days.
Rachel, have your hand up.
Hi, I'm a student. I'm an undergrad student. I'm a little nervous because I've never gone to a Kasha meeting before, but I am so excited to have been here. I was exposed to many different perspectives that first I went to a lecture on last Sunday about like inclusion in the SLP community, and I never really understood or never knew about that, how exclusive it might have been, and how these people felt like they were excluded, because I'm coming into this field with the hope that I can, I don't know, make someone feel like their voice is heard. So I never really understood that, but it was crazy to see that that's a whole different perspective that has never been given attention. My question is, as a student, an undergrad student, how do I kind of start building my foundation with Kasha or in the SLP community and kind of trying to submerge myself into the inclusion? If anyone has any tips, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, let me just jump in and say, my bosses are going to have a lot more to say, but we do have 2 student reps to the board, one north and one south. Shoot me an email, I'll connect you with them, and we'll support you in whatever way we can. They're just, year after year, we have the most fantastic student reps on the board, and we're so grateful for them. So shoot me an email, Rachel, and we'll get you connected that way.
I just wanted to say, Rachel, that something that I've encouraged students for many years is I say, when I went through the program, I had only learned what a speech pathologist was because of a place that I worked. And I was so busy just trying to be in the program that I didn't sign up and I didn't participate and in a lot of things. And so I missed out on huge opportunities for mentorship. So when I came to Kasha a little bit later, I realized just how much the connections are, and we really are a small group. I know that there's many of us, but you will find that you will be mentored when you're face to face with someone. They're happy to get to know you, and you're being mentored by those that are running our programs, that are accepting you into graduate school, those that have been in the field for a long time. That's never been something that another SLP or audiologist has ever said no to. So in a very real way, just being part of it and coming to your district meetings and just getting to know those people and hooking up with those student reps you'll see that there's a lot of work being done through NISLA with Kasha to kind of connect you with those mentor opportunities. I can't tell you how awesome it would have been as a student had I reached out and then had an actual SLP look at my resume, or just have, you know, a lunch with me through Zoom, and so that we could talk and say, like, how do I interview better? Or what, you know, what do I need to know? Or can I just shadow you for a couple of days where you're at? Is that possible? So Kasha does open that opportunity for you to be able to make those asks of people, because I have yet to ever see anybody say no.
I think
I
also
can
just
add too. I think both Burl and I, maybe Michele and Raquel too, we were involved in NISHLA. I started going to Kasha conventions when I was a student. You can connect up with faculty member, ask them if they're a Kasha member, find out who on the faculty is a Kasha member. How did they get involved? What are they doing with Kasha? So you can start your network right even as an undergrad. Certainly as a graduate student, there's even more opportunities and outreach. So we'll be doing, I think, some exciting things this next year. One of my current jobs as immediate past chair of Kasha is I'm the chair of the Kasha Foundation. And we're going to be doing, I think, some exciting things coming up ahead that are going to involve all levels of the organization, and certainly our students as well.
I think also just kind of add to that, I agree with everything that's been said, but I think also starting this conversation that we're having right now about who's being included, who's being excluded, and what can we do at the, you know, whatever space you're in right now, you know, as an undergrad student, what can you do at the university that you're at right now to help people be more inclusive? So start having these conversations, you know, starting to work with maybe other disciplines, like reaching out to, you know, the OTs, PTs groups, or, you know, the multicultural departments. How can we start really embracing interprofessional collaboration? So I think we talk a lot about that, but I don't think we necessarily do a really good job about making those connections. And we can't expand our knowledge base unless we actually start hearing how other professions are also addressing these same challenges, because it's not unique to just us. And so I think, you know, being in a university setting right now and being an undergrad, you have this unique opportunity to expand this conversation and to reach out and to start working collaboratively with other professionals.
I will tell you too, one of my jobs, I sit on the ASHA Financial Planning Board, and there is a national NISHL representative on that board. And it was a young man who is an audiology student that I sat next to at several meetings when we were doing live meetings. And so know that when you are in NISHLA, when you are in Kasha, you're making connections and you're developing leadership skills. When I meet students, I'm expecting that I'm going to see them as a leader down the road, because speech language pathologists make great leaders. We know how to communicate, we know how to organize, we know how to plan, we know how to evaluate and analyze information and take it somewhere and do something with it. So all of you on here, I expect you're either leaders or you're on your path to becoming one.
So with that, I want to, Neusha, you've had your hand up, so I'd love to call on you next.
Thank you. I just wanted to agree with Rachel. When I'm currently a graduate student, my name is Neusha. When I was an undergrad, I was actually very participant, like in NISHLA, and I was participating a lot. But once I became a graduate student, that's when, like Michele was saying, I was trying to focus on just my studies and not anything else. And tonight is actually my first night ever joining Kasha. And I just wanted to relate. Love you. Yeah, and thank you, Michele. I'm actually at the Learning Grove with Michele too, so I wanted to thank you, Michele, for everything. And yeah, I've appreciated everything tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Yes,
glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
I will say something to you students, like I'm kind of mid-career. I think that sometimes your skill set, you undervalue the things that are so natural for you guys that for us are like, how do you make an infographic? And how do I make my Facebook talk to my Instagram and do a story? And you guys are like, I got this. So it's sometimes the contributions that for you seem so small and natural, for someone like me who's juggling other things are just so grateful for, and you guys aren't scared and you have ideas. And the way that you have accessed your education, I mean, I would sit at a desk and hear what they told me and take notes. You guys are interactive. You do, search engines, you make videos. I mean, you guys engage in this world, this global technological world in such a proficient way that it makes us awestruck. So when you ask yourselves, like, what can I contribute? What have I done? I've not even sat in front of a patient. I'm like, oh, you can do so much.
Yeah.
And it's something that seems relatively so small to you for us, because again, we're always trying to learn and keep up with the technology, something that is a little bit less effortful for your generation.
Thank you, Michele. We actually don't get to really hear about the CSHA convention either, so I think we really need to study more about it. Unless we've been part of NISHLA before, we don't usually get emails about it. So I actually heard about this opportunity from my supervisor for my externship, and so we can like all spread the word to get people to join CSHA, and that would be great.
Also, members of the CSHA board go out and speak to student groups all the time. A week from Friday, I'm speaking to a graduate class at UOP, where last year I was there live. This year I'm doing it virtually, but I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about opportunities in CSHA, how to grow their leadership, and then some of the nuts and bolts of getting a job and getting through the RPE and CF paperwork.
Awesome. And then also, if we have like faculty members that work at universities, we've always encouraged faculty members, because you're the first point of entry for our students into the profession. So, really highlighting CSHA and what CSHA can actually do for the state. I think I think for the most part, we do have a lot of faculty members that are very supportive of CSHA, but it's always so heartbreaking when we hear from some new members or new professionals into the field that reach out to CSHA because they don't really know the difference between what CSHA is and what like the licensing board is. They're calling us about like licensure issues, which we can definitely direct them in the right place, but there really has, and I think in order to be able to be to function as a professional in the state, I think individuals really from a very early on point into their entry into the profession need to know the differences of each of these organizations or agencies and what they actually do and how they support us as professionals in the state.
All right. Okay, 2 hands up. They went up right at the same time. Let's see. On my screen, Marcella, you're at the top. So we'll do Marcella and then Leanne.
It's the unmute thing I have to always remember.
I'm Marcella.
Hi.
So glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here too. I want to thank you for the CSHA Convos. I think they're incredibly powerful. I think that the opportunities for not just CSHA members, but the community at large to kind of see what CSHA is about has been incredible. And to follow up on the student comments, I am wondering, I guess it's a 2-part question. One is, what are some other kind of concrete ways that we can, as CSHA members, be involved and help and support CSHA other than membership dues? And then the second piece connected to that is it common or do we expect to see, or is the membership happening or communication happening at the district level, so that, like one of the examples that you gave was attending district meetings? How do we learn when district meetings are happening? Thanks.
There's been a new trend with our board members, where before we would have our district meetings before the board meeting, and so that was kind of a gauge. It feels as though the board meetings that we have set, those dates that are online, you should expect a meeting very closely after that. It seems as though our new are finding that a much better way to communicate the things that have gone on. And so that is maybe not common practice, but it is becoming more common. So hopefully that's a better gauge of knowing when they're coming out, reaching out, and we've we have had conversations with our board members to ensure that they are following through and getting those communications out.
Marcella, let me just add to that too. One of the things that will be featured in the communities, we're going to launch with a limited number of communities to kind of phase one, test it out, and then we'll add more. But there will be district communities within which you can click a box and join that district community, and thereby creating a way for district people within the district to communicate with one another. In addition to subject area expertise, we'll have the CSHA student forum, we'll have the CSHA SLPA forum, and so we'll be creating a lot of opportunities within those verticals for people to communicate with one another as well.
I think too, I mean, Michele was addressing the advisory committees, but the districts are sometimes putting on Zoom meetings, just open like a Zoom social kind of meeting. So there's lots of different kinds of things people can do other than just go to an advisory committee meeting. You said Leanne was going to be up next? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to, I'm Leanne Shout and I'm the District 8 Director currently. And so I get to hear some of the board's conversation, but I wanted to take just a quick moment to say thank you so much to Michele and to Linda and to Raquel, because I've had difficult conversations with them regarding inclusion and diversity and the role of CSHA and what we're looking for in the future and how we're trying to definitely be more inclusive. And it's where we're going and it's what we need to do and it's how everyone's voice needs to be heard. But it has definitely given me the ability to take some of the teachings that they have given me back to individuals, not just within CSHA, but just all over and say, look, you know, this is where we're going. And within my own field, this is how we're tackling this and this is how we see the future. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to personally reach out to say thank you for your knowledge and for your teaching and how I'm taking that and using it to hopefully expand and spread it out there in District 8 and beyond. So just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Leanne.
I think this might be a good point watching time because I always try to end and then we end up going over. So I will invite the panelists to share closing thoughts here. You know, from what you've heard from this conversation tonight, and you know, we planned this one to come at the end of the conversations that we had in 2020 to kind of tie everything together and think about where we're going into the future with this. So I'll invite each of you to give, you know, 2 to 3 minutes and continue. If you've got additional questions, comments, please type them in the chat. But panelists, I will open it back up to you officially.
Do you mind if I go first on this one?
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Linda.
We're all excited. I think this has been such an invigorating conversation, and there's probably no one I appreciate good conversation with Raquel, Michele, and Pearl. And to have all of you join with us tonight has been absolutely fabulous. If I could just have you take away a couple things that I have certainly thought of in preparing from this and just enjoying the interaction of tonight. Leadership is so important. There's none of you that are on here tonight that is not a leader in some way, that does not have talents that can be used in your workplace, in your CSHA district, or maybe you need to run for office and be on the CSHA board as well. Don't be afraid to look at those opportunities. The committees for CSHA are open right now. Look those over. Maybe it's not the right time for you to do it now, but think about it because maybe next time they're open, it will be the right time for you. And reach out to any of us and ask us questions about what that means or what that looks like. Go ahead and do it. And again, you may say, oh, I can't do it now, but keep it in mind. There's going to be a time.
So if I may go, I'd like to first say thank you for inviting me. I always think I'm done, and I think I'm finally probably done. But Linda, I agree. I love these discussions with you women and with the broader community that is here on this call. And Katie's been fabulous with her moderating, and Brian and the staff are amazing. And it has been such a difficult but fabulous trajectory. And I am so very proud to continue to be a member of this organization. This organization is now, I see the word woke all the time, W-O-K-E. And this organization is woke and is moving ahead of the country. I feel like Kasha started this before our trajectory in the States this summer. And I'm so glad that the country is mirroring Kasha instead of the other way around. Everyone is so open to listening, understanding, and moving forward, and understanding the intersectionality that we all have and that is so important. And I want to say thank you. And I want to say I will certainly continue to be a member and advocate for Kasha. Thank you.
I wanted to say in the chat that many hands make for light work. I've learned that along the way. And if we remember who we are at our core and why did we get into this? Man, people do not sit in front of me on their best day. Think about people's best days. Their best days are when they're surrounded with family and friends, they feel healthy, they have all of the things that make them feel good, right? Might be that you got your lashes done or your nails done. But when we see people, we don't always see them on their best day. And we are charged to help them get a voice again, swallow again, remember who their loved ones are. All of you do these heavy lifts for people on the daily. People come to you scared. I don't think my mom is gonna, eat, she's wasting away. Or my son doesn't speak, he won't look at me. He doesn't say, I love you. Every single person on here has a real calling, a real vocation to help people. And that's great. So remember how powerful you already are and the things that you do already. So now take a little bit of that self-care and really participating in your state association. If we all work together to make things better for each other, and you don't have to do it alone, we can do that all together to advocate for ourselves, advocate for those that we are charged to care for. We can make such a big difference. We already make a difference every day. Imagine the huge lift that we can do together. And so if it's not today, if it's not now that you feel ready to serve in the capacity of a board member, fine. Find something else, even your voice, even to get an email from you to say, hey, this is going on here. Can you guys help? Even that helps us stay informed. The whole point is that we're unified in a shared goal together. And so I really thank all of you. I thank the people before me that pulled me into Kasha, that made me believe that I can actually make a difference for all of you and serve all of you, not just those that I see on my caseload. It has made me a better person and a better leader in so many ways. And I hope that you get to benefit from that feeling one day, because it does nourish your soul, and it helps you, I think it'll help you kind of recenter that love for what our profession is and fight that burnout.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on all that's already been said, for those of you who are Kasha members and have not felt like you can get involved, or for those that are not Kasha members yet and are looking to get involved, I just want people to know that there is space for you here in our association. If you get nothing else from what we've done throughout the discussions we've had throughout the Kasha Convos and here tonight, certainly, is that we need you, and this does not work without you. Like, we can't be a better version of ourselves if we don't have everyone at the table, and that we're hearing everyone's voice, and that people have the opportunity to be heard. And so just know that our efforts truly are genuine, and we really are doing our best. And, that doesn't mean we're not going to stumble along the way. I'm sure we will, but just know that our efforts it's coming from a real place where we do want you at the table. And it's not just lip service. And we really are trying to make things better, because we do know that the road to change, I think, with our profession, I truly do believe that road leads right through California. And we're so unique in that I think and we can be bold, and people expect that from California, to really lead the charge in all aspects of our field. And so just know that you are valued, and we do want to hear your voices, and we're doing everything we can to make as much room in that tent as humanly possible. And the goal is never to push anyone out. And if you feel like that you're being pushed out, just know that that's not true. And if you need someone to kind of talk you off that ledge, just like as Michele said, reach out to us, and we're more than happy to have that conversation with you, and have those one-on-one conversations. We'll make time for that.
I want to thank all of the panelists so much for being here, and the Kasha staff as well. Brian, Heather, Kevin, who have mightily helped execute all of these in the face of so much happening this year. This has been a really fantastic end cap to this. And the thing that kept coming up for me as all of you were talking was be the change you want to see. And to me, that's what this conversation just fully embodies, is people who all of you have stepped up to be the change that you have wanted to see. You have made change, but you see where more change is possible, and exhorting everybody else in this room, and those who aren't in this room as well, to come and be part of it. So thank you to everyone who is here this evening. Thank you to the panelists for sharing your stories and your insights and your opinions so openly and frankly. Thank you to the participants, especially those who commented and shared, especially if it was your first time. That's a big step to step out and share. And thank you to the Kasha and the Kasha Convos team for committing the resources and energies to this series. We are going to be continuing the series in 2021. This has been such an integral part and has led so much change already. So we are working on getting the next bits queued up, so you can look for announcements of when the next ones will be happening and what the topics will be. You can also provide comments or feedback about this convo, or what you might like to see in upcoming convos, or the convo series overall, by visiting the link on the CSHA Convos website, and I will post that in the chat as soon as I'm done talking. All of the comments will be reviewed and taken into consideration as CSHA Convos progress. And we'll also use that, CSHA will also use this feedback to inform the work of the organization overall. We value your insights and thank you for adding your voice to these conversations. Due to limited resources, we might not be able to respond to every single comment, but we absolutely are reading them. This ongoing series is totally free, because CSHA believes so strong in the value and importance of this work, wanting to make the big tent where everybody can come in, and wants to actively invest in these efforts. So if you are not a CSHA member so far, but you want to support this work and CSHA overall, we strongly encourage you to become a CSHA member. Because, as has been said so many times tonight, the bigger this platform is, the louder these voices will be. CSHA is the largest state organization, and there is a real opportunity, like Raquel said, to change the narrative in our field, with CSHA leading the way if we have enough people. So if you join CSHA in the next 24 hours, we will attribute that to this conversation, to these convos, and as a sign of what there should be more of. So thank you again to the panelists, to CSHA, to everyone who has done the work of showing up, speaking up, listening, advocating, hearing these stories, sharing your stories, getting on board, and pulling us into the future for 2021 and beyond. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been an absolute delight, and we will see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Oh, and I will try to post that link. Oh, I was going to post the link, and here we go. If you're still here and you would like to post the feedback link, there it is. All right, I think we can stop the recording button there.